Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inspected Goals, the pod that tries to improve our FPL play through a more analytical approach. I'm Luke. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, regulars. With me today is not Sam yet again. He's out and about doing the whole sports science thing. I think he's again with the England ladies, maybe. Pretty sure jet setting around the world. What a life, eh? But in his place, we've got a fantastic stand-in. Mr. Abdul, FPL Salah on Twitter. I'm sure you guys all know him. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good, Luke. How's yourself, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm recovering. I'm recovering. Put it that way. After last week, I think we were just talking
Yeah.
a little bit before we went online. That was some rigmarole last week, wasn't it, with the whole leak and
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Yeah, it was pretty stressful. Like the last two Saturday mornings have been pretty stressful. Luckily, I got managed to get my transfers in this week though. But yeah, we'll go again this Saturday, don't we? With the early kick-off with City again.
Yeah, it's a nightmare to be honest. We may as well just cover it now. To be honest, it's like I'm really appreciative that we do get the leaks because any extra information I can get to get the upper hand on anyone, I will take. I'm not afraid to say so. I mean, happy days. Not even the upper hand. The information is out there for anyone who wants it, I suppose. Although it's not ideal that you have to be available at that exact time in your life. It's very stressful for certain people of a certain age or in certain areas of the world. But it's the whole thing that it's so close to deadline, coupled with that site going down, that just means, especially when it's like crushing news, like the fact that Haaland wasn't
Yeah.
playing and Foden wasn't playing, and I personally thought they both probably would play,
Same.
and I've got them both in my team as well with other fires, and it's like although I've got ideas in my head of what to do, that was probably one of the least likely scenarios, and then bam, you get the news, and then the site goes down at almost the exact same time, and it is crushing because as much as it is a game and it is fun and you could laugh in the aspects, you've spent a lot of time thinking about it and then you're just not able to do
Yeah.
anything about it. It's so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like, um, it was just, I was just like a really kind of high stress situation, and at the same time, like I was saying before, like, I hadn't even kind of planned a scenario where Foden and Haaland would be benched because I thought there's no way that's going to happen. I had one for like a Haaland bench and a Foden bench. I just kind of, as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, I need to make my transfers like the next 2 minutes, because it's gonna crash and it's gonna get worse. So yeah, I just made my transfers on a kind of whim, and luckily they got through. But yeah, a lot of people got burnt this week, which is a shame.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure. Like, I don't know if it's just I don't know. It's because the news was news I didn't want to hear. But when I watched the video, I wasn't even 100% sure that they were being truthful. If it was just taking the piss sort of thing, I wasn't like I was almost tricking myself to say, no, 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 that can't be right. They're not taking the piss
Yeah,
here. And then that was causing me to have a bit of a delay. Where if I'd have known the site was going to go down, I should have just gone bam straight away. And like you, luckily, I had my trans. I literally did Foden to Trossard. That's all I did. I kept Haaland. I did very briefly consider the whole Haaland and Foden switching to De Bruyne and Alvarez. And
yeah,
I was thinking about doing it, and then, I mean, for reasons we're going to talk about in a minute, and Haaland and whether he starts, I didn't want to do that simply because I didn't want to go into the next week with being in the situation that I probably needed a hit to get Haaland. So that's how I convinced myself, and I thought, well, Alvarez, even if he starts in that game, right, we weren't sure about Haaland in terms of his minutes. We're thinking, well, if Alvarez only plays 60 minutes and Haaland comes on for 30, he can hurt me. And then, again, I'm buying a striker who may only play 60 minutes, which isn't ideal. So, in the end, I talked myself out of it. I would actually be up because they ended up doing pretty damn well between them. My captain would have been Alvarez. It wouldn't have been De Bruyne. I would have put it on Alvarez. So I would have been up. But then when you take into the account probably the hit to switch it around this week again, it's quite marginal. And I think taking a hit for an individual week, it's quite rare that'll work out. I mean, you're the master of this sort of thing, aren't you? You rarely ever take them, so it's quite lucky when those come off. I think, even in a game as good as that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, to be fair, like I didn't even have like I just kind of, as I said, I made my transfers on a whim, and then once I made my transfers, I started thinking of that move. Taking out like the Haaland and Foden move to to Alvarez and somebody else. So like I was lucky I didn't have enough time to think because I could have possibly even like under that situation took it Haaland out, and then I would have been really regretting it now. But I'm so glad I kept him because obviously he came on, scored, and I think we've got to assume he starts against Brentford now. I know he didn't come on and he didn't play any minutes in the Carabao Cup, but Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and guess Pep here. That's your job. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he starts?
Um, it, I hate answering these ones because at the end of the day, it's nothing to do with tactics.
Yeah,
It's information we just don't have access to. Only the medical team, Pep, really know. What he says in the media can help us to lean one way, but you never know who that's for, who that's to encourage, how to interpret it. He's never as straightforward as Haaland's going to start this week or Haaland's not, so you're
yeah,
never going to get it clear cut. I mean, my feeling is that he probably does start because I think when Haaland's available, he starts. I mean, that's not really in question so far this season. When he's been available, he's played, even in games where people thought, towards the beginning of the season, when they're having games every 3 days the first time, it was largely
yeah,
expected that he wouldn't play, right? And he did. So I don't think that's in question. The fact that he doesn't go to the World Cup probably helps it as well, I guess, because what does it matter to Pep as long as he doesn't cause himself a long-term injury?
yeah,
He may as well try and pick his best team to try and win the game. So yeah, I think that's all in his favour. The fact he was on the bench and they obviously comfortably won or were comfortably better in the cup and didn't need him, I think that probably is a positive, if anything, really, because he didn't feel to bring him in and just risk him for any reason. So he's probably,
yeah,
I don't know, that kind of made me think that okay, the fact he played Alvarez for 90, he had Haaland there ready to go. I suppose the more important thing for me is I do think you'll see the pitch. Now, that could either be the last 20 or 30 minutes, or it could be a start. But I can't really see the 90, can you, considering he's just coming back? I know we've been in this position before with Haaland, where, especially in the analytics circles, we've kind of underestimated how many minutes he'll play. But I think given he's coming off of an injury, what would you say is the best we could get from him? I sort of had the sort of 70-minute mark as probably the best we could get. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
yeah. I'd say. I mean, I would put like a wee. I guess right now, I'd say 70 to 75. Because of the fact, just as you mentioned, he's just come back from injury. But yeah, the fact he's not got a World Cup or any sort of distractions in that sense is, he's got nothing to rest him for. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say probably 70 to 75, which is for me is more than good enough to give him the armband.
And again, we are playing the game within a game. I know you're supposed to go for points, but the fact that his effective ownership will be so crazily high against everyone, most people, as much as we
Yeah,
think a lot of people do get the news, and they do now, there's also a hell of a lot of people out there that don't. I mean, Haaland's risen in price this week already, which
exactly.
I can't understand that because, well, I suppose I can because of what I just said, but no, I don't know who in their right mind is making that transfer when potentially you can get the Man City news early. I know we have to rely on the servers, but also he didn't even start the cup game. Pep's not said he's 100% fit either, and yet he's gone up in price.
Yeah, I guess it's just those were kind of the the crowd that aren't on Twitter and just saw the fact that he came on as a sub and scored. They'll probably be totally oblivious to
Yeah, you're probably
the
right.
Saturday morning news. I guess it's kind of. I mean, it's only us like Twitter guys who know that, and I know there is a lot of us, but still the vast majority of kind of FPL users are don't use Twitter.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think in a situation where he's getting 70 or 20, it's still going to make a difference for me in terms of the captain. So for me, in terms of the league, he's in my team. I'm not going to be taking him out. There was a scenario potentially where I thought, well, at the end of the day, if he's not starting this week, maybe I could move him to Kane, and that does kind of appeal. But then I think losing that point 0.3 when he probably would come off of the bench if he's on the bench. Does that make sense anyway? I
Yeah,
probably wouldn't do that. So yeah, I think it's only important in terms of the armband because I'm not gonna captain him if he's on the bench. Simple as that. And I don't think you would either, right? I know there's a lot of people out there that probably still would, but I don't think I would. I'll just put it on Salah.
yeah. If he's on the bench, there's no way he's getting mad at the armband.
No. No, absolutely not. And it is a great game, to be fair. And the last week was a great game as well, ruined by the red
Yeah,
card. That's the other thing with football. I mean, on paper, absolutely excellent game, and they did very well. But we all know that football can do the football thing, and it can throw up these curveballs like getting a red card or whatever else that can happen at any point. Haaland could injure himself in 2 minutes being on the pitch. Who knows what could actually go on the day. How did you actually get on this week then? Because there's quite a variety, I think. Quite often this season, it's felt like to me that in and around engaged managers, Twitter and stuff, the scores haven't been that different between us. We've all had quite close teams. It's been quite bunched. I can't think of too many weeks where there's been massive variety. But this week, probably because of the fact that the site crashed or what you did with the information probably contributed. So yeah, how did you get on this week?
yeah. I actually had my first kind of good game week in quite a long time. So I got 81 points. I had Salah captain.
Wow.
And I got I think it was around about 390k, and that gave me like a rank rise up to about 130k.
Nice.
So yeah, it was really kind of good and needed game week, and hopefully I can try and the target is get into the top 100k by game week 16. So yeah, that target is well and truly on. So yeah, I mean it's been a kind of it's not been the best start to the season for me. I've had a lot of it just seems like one game week I'd get like a small green, in the next season it'd be like quite a bad red. And that kind of trend has continued from like game week 2. Because at game week 2 I was at 50k, and then I've just kind of been up and down from like 100k to 300k. But yeah, I finally had that good game week, so hopefully I can kick on.
Do you think we've been kind of a little bit, well, you in particular, I suppose, been a bit spoiled recently in terms of, because there's so much more exposure around rank, there's a lot more content creators, everyone shares it, everyone who's doing good is all over Twitter, that we're so like conscious of it the whole time. And when you probably go back, or because you've been playing this game a hell of a lot of time, let's say you go back 10 years or whatever, I bet during the season you didn't really pay much attention to it. At the end of the day, the final rank, if rank matters at all, which is questionable for a start, if it does matter at all, obviously it only matters at the end of game week 38. And I think probably if you look retrospectively at all your other seasons and other seasons you have done obviously fantastically well as well, you might comparatively be doing quite well this season, even though it feels like a bad season, if you see what I mean, compared to those other ones, because at the end of the day, you always end up sort of rising to the top as it comes towards the end, I imagine. So
Yeah, I mean,
go on.
yeah, I do agree, and like I've kind of been tracking the progress over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and
Okay.
this is probably the worst start I've had over the last 4 seasons. So I have been quite lucky in the sense that I've not really had like a bad season for almost 4 or 5, like my 5th season now. So yeah, you're right. It is like a kind of thing where it's like you're spoiled, and you've probably got kind of unrealistic expectations. But yeah, I mean, saying that I've had a bad season, I compared it to last season, I'm only around about 20 points off, really, comparably. So, and especially now after that game week last week. I mean, the thing is as well, that this, I don't know if you noticed, but, and I don't know if this is actually true as well, but it just feels like, because we're in like a game week 16 now, right? And it just feels like the ranks are still so bunched up right now. I don't think this was the case last season or even the season before, where it's like, the ranks were so close together. So I mean, even though you're sitting at maybe 300 or 400k, it's not as actually bad as it looks. I don't
What do
know
you
if
put
you
that
feel
down
that
to?
as well. Well, I just think the template teams. I mean, I think it's getting more and more template every season, and I think because of the fact this season we've had obviously using the early wild card, and then having unlimited transfers for game week 16, it's been even more so like everyone's teams following that same path. I think when we were looking at the wild cards, it was everyone wild card either in game week 8, 9, or 13, I think it was.
Yeah.
And
Certainly everyone we know.
Yeah, everyone we know, and I think when we say everyone we know, those are the guys who we're really competing against, who are going to be there at the end of the season. And even then, I mean, these chip strategies are being kind of aired on all the big YouTube channels, like Andy, Raptor, FPL Mate, whoever it is, the biggest YouTube channels. So it's not only like that information is getting kind of broadcast worldwide, and to a much bigger kind of user base than we probably expect. So, and that's going to only increase as the seasons go on.
I absolutely notice it now, because I'm in a few like work leagues and stuff like. There's probably about 3 or 4 of my leagues out of the loads that I'm in are just complete. They don't even know who I am, such a celebrity. That's not what I mean. But do you know what I mean? There's people in there, and in the past I would look through their the league and just look at their teams and just laugh to myself. Whereas now I'll look at the bottom team, and it will be basically my team. It will be just as good, maybe 2 players different. Maybe I think the fringe pieces they sometimes struggle with, but then they soon become apparent. But the teams are absolutely great, and then couple that with the Haaland captain nearly every week, and it probably goes some way to explain it, right?
Yeah, and I've totally noticed that this season. I mean, even last season it wasn't really the case in my work leagues, in those kind of private leagues. And this season, honestly, I'm sitting 5th. I mean, usually in my main work league, I'm first by game week 2, no matter how bad the season I've had, and I'm top until the end. Whereas this season I'm sitting 5th or 6th, and looking through everybody's teams. I mean, they're definitely watching stuff on YouTube or Twitter, or they're definitely getting their information in the same place as we are.
Yeah. So I actually genuinely think that the start is more important than it's ever been, because I think that's your biggest deviation part. I think that although we do have the content and everyone will put it out, there'll always be those people who will go their own way at the start in particular. Like, there was a hell of a lot of people who thought Haaland wouldn't particularly do well at Man City, for example. And
Yeah.
there is a chance that could have happened. You know, I'm not going to sit here and slag anyone off for that. You know, there is
Yeah.
a chance. We have seen similar things happen.
Of course.
Yeah, so I think with the whole World Cup and everything, like you say, and the timing of the wild cards, and I suppose the pricing has gone into it as well. I think the game it's just so much easier to get your world star teams now. You don't really have to do your research on your Brentford left backs and your rotations and stuff. So it just becomes quite easier to make it template. But it's kind of frustrating, I think, for those who have had a bad start, because then trying to make it up is really, really difficult, and I do feel for them. So I think you have to get a lot of luck at the start to really give yourself a good chance. You don't have to. There's always going to be exceptions, but I think in general, and I think like you, I've been kind of lucky in the last few seasons where I've kind of been on the players from the beginning who have fired, and it's not always the best players on paper that will fire. But I think back to last season, I started with Antonio and Benrahma. You know, if you didn't have those two guys, I think it was last season, wasn't it? I think pretty sure it was.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You basically got decimated in the first 4 weeks. Like, it was
Yeah.
almost unrecoverable. I think Antonio scored nearly all of his points in the first 4 weeks. Same as Benrahma. And, you know, you could argue even in the case of Benrahma, he wasn't a particularly good pick over the season. We just got extremely lucky that he was fantastic in those first few weeks. And I think that's where you kind of your ballpark of where you're going to finish in a season is made or lost quite a lot of the time anyway. So yeah, a lot of luck in this game. As much as there is definitely skill and 100%, and you're living proof of that. Someone who can do so well, so consistently, there has to be skill in it. But I think even you admit there is a hell of a lot of luck in this game as well, right? There's only so much you can control.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, no doubt about it. I mean, the main thing is, I think the main thing we've got to know is that the work, the kind of the research you put into this game, it's not kind of, evidence of, the results we'll get. So you also have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So it's like, yeah, it's just one of those games. It's not like chess where it's like, there's always moves to make. There's just too many kind of human factors in it.
Too many permutations. Yeah, the correlation of effort put in and results isn't always the same in FPL, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, the winners are absolutely living proof in this game. Nearly every season, the winner is someone who's never come in the top, 600,000 or something. And yeah, it's unbelievable how they do that. I mean, to be in the top 10k out of 10 million is ridiculous. I know we always have this top 10k thing that people seem to hold on to, and I do think it is a thing from the past, because now being top 10k out of 10 million players is incredibly tough. So I don't think anyone should beat themselves up if they can't make it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some players this week, because it's a bit of a funny week, and I have listened to a few pods, and we're all saying the same kind of things, and it's for obvious reasons. Everyone sort of else was saying it's a complete Hail Mary. You can do whatever hell you want, and I am behind that personally. Obviously, when we get to completely reset, there's limited repercussions for what you do to your team. The only thing I'll add to that is what I said right at the start, that there is still value after this. It's not like 38. You still have to probably bear in mind value for some of your players.
Yeah.
Losing that whole Haaland to Kane may pay off this week, for example, if he doesn't play, but then losing that 0.3, which I think it is at the moment, over the course of the season may actually get you those points back later on. So it's not quite there, but it is almost, isn't it? So I'm going to bring up a slide here, actually, which is just the goalkeepers and defenders. Now, I don't know how popular goalkeeper and defender transfers will actually be in the community. I can't think of too many examples where a player in one of those positions needs fixing.
Yeah, but see, I think there might be, because I think a lot of people have got like quite a set, kind of front, midfield and forwards. Like, unless you've got like kind of Alvarez, you're pretty much kind of set. So yeah, I think there's not going to be as much goalkeeper and defender transfers as the forwards, but I do think there's going to be a few FPL players, because I'm actually thinking of a defender transfer myself.
Okay. I suppose it's for people who, because teams are probably, if you prepared well, looking really good this week, because the fixtures are pretty good for the top teams this week. I mean, my team I think it looks pretty good on paper. I mean, I think that most weeks doesn't always get points, but it looks pretty good. The bench is okay. And in that situation where we get lucky, and this is the bit that's holding us back a bit, with the Man City team and the league that everyone is waiting for, which is what's stopping us from committing a lot all over the place. Suddenly there is the option where if that all falls my way, then yeah, a defender transfer for me would actually probably happen. I mean, I'd probably get Gabriel. I'm just going to read it out for people who are listening on the pod. So we've taken this from FPL Review, and it's given a total column, which is in the middle there. You've got the expected minutes from the player on the left, and you've got points per minute on the right, which isn't particularly important at this for one game week. So for goalkeepers, I'll just read the top 5 for me. It's got Edison at the very top with 4.5. On average, these will be the points that he's expected to get this game week. Obviously, with a clean sheet, you'd be hitting 6. So pretty good chances of a clean sheet for obvious reasons. We've got Alisson, Ramsdale, Sanchez and Pickford that make up the top 5, and they're fairly bunched together. I can't think of too many examples of a goalkeeper transfer, so I'm going to gloss over that. However, like I just mentioned, if everything in my team works out perfectly, I am sat with Pope and Trippier, and I can afford just to go Pope to Edison. And as boring as that is, that might be something I end up doing. I am, however, waiting on Mitrovic news. Have you seen the news today that Mitrovic? I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but it seems like the national team has said something like he's broken a bone in his foot or 2 bones in his foot or something along those lines. Have you seen that?
Well, yes, I've seen a few tweets getting thrown about. I assumed it was official. I've not got Mitrovic, so I didn't really look into it. But I've seen Ben Dinnery's tweet saying that he's out for the first game of the World Cup. So obviously that means he'll be out for game week 16 as well.
Yeah. I was probably going to do Pope to Edison, which, I mean, as you can see from there, Pope's 3.7, Edison's 4.5. So it's minimum impact, really, for a transfer. But now that Mitrovic out, I'll probably scrap that. We'll move on to defenders. It's slightly more exciting. We've got Trent Alexander-Arnold at the top. Still the algorithm loves Trent, as poor as he's been. He's been in my team pretty much all season. I can't say it's hurt me too much overall, though, because I'm still doing okay. He's kind of the guy I've got, which Solanke, Pereira, some of my cheaper players have enabled. He's not done it, but the enablers have ended up doing it. It's crazy how FPL works sometimes. But he's right at the top at 5.6, and he's sat in my team. Every week I think he's going to get something, and it seems like the fixture looks pretty good. But do you think? I mean, you're a fan. You support Man United, don't you? Despite being FPL seller, but surely he's still a good pick this week, right? Give me some confidence.
You know what I mean. See what's kind of worrying for me is that when you look at the bookies odds, and they always say it's Liverpool's poor defence is finally being reflected in that as well. I mean, it's a lot less than what it was last season. Even this week, they're at home to Southampton and they've got them at 45%. Last season that would have been easily above 50. So I think right now with Trent, we're kind of relying on attacking returns. But yeah, I mean, fixture-wise, you can't really ask for much more. And I mean, I don't think there's any way I'd include him in my team after from game week 17. When we got limited transfers. The only reason I still got him was because obviously he had those 2 fixtures and had other kind of fires to fix. So yeah, I mean, I think you've had him longer than me, Luke, and yeah, I think it's quite amazing. Like, what are you at now? Like 50k or something?
I think I'm 30. I haven't looked. I think I'm 30. Let me have a look now, quickly.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you've had obviously fantastic that season. The fact that you've had Trent is quite impressive. Considering he's only had the only returns he's actually had is that Bournemouth game, and then I think it was the West Ham game.
Yeah, you had the Mega Hall was versus Bournemouth, was it? And then
Bournemouth, and then the West Ham game was extremely lucky because obviously Bournemouth missed the penalty. So, I mean, I think the points we've got so far have probably been quite lucky considering the fact that they conceded so many goals. But yeah, I'm not confident, but I don't think we could take him out at home to Southampton.
No, I'm never going to be taking him out. I'm just going to be hoping he finally comes through. I think his attacking output has looked a lot dampened of late. Just watching the games, he does seem to be not getting forward as much, not whipping in the balls as much. I mean, it's still there. You still see every game. Every single game you watch Trent, he will still make you go wow at one point for a good reason. Yeah. He will do something, even if it's just a crossfield ball or whatever. But yeah, it's not really been as adventurous as I'd have hoped. But I think they've been affected by injuries as well. I know there's people have done Liverpool to death. There's a whole number of possible theories and reasons as to why they haven't been as good, but. The bottom line for me is Trent and Robbo just haven't been as impactful as they have in previous seasons. Those fullbacks were basically unstoppable. Everyone knew what they're going to do, and they just couldn't stop it. And now it just doesn't seem to have quite the same impact. But anyway, I won't waste any more time on that. We've got Cancelo and Robertson that come in second and third, so 5.1 points for Cancelo, Robertson for 4.5. I've also got Cancelo. I'm sure you've got Cancelo too as well, right?
Yeah.
Pretty standard. And then it's got Gabriel at 4.5 after Robertson. So he'd probably be my defender transfer in, actually, if I had to pick. That's who I was thinking of anyway. And then when I looked at review, it came up as Gabriel being that high up and obviously being cheap enough. So if I had a bit of a hole in defence, I think he's where I'd go. The only other name that really tempted me was possibly Perisic.
Yeah.
Which one would you pick out of them if you had to make a defender transfer?
See, that's the thing. I think this is a week where you kind of just go for the vibe pick, right? Because it's just one game week. And I'm really liking the look at Perisic because I think my transfer will most likely be a defender transfer. So I'm looking at like Dunk to Perisic, just purely because he might play in a front two and a front three again. I'm going to obviously wait on that Paul O'Keefe's kind of prediction lineup. I know he's not 100% accurate, but he has kind of been fairly spot on last week's. Close enough. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I think Gabriel is the move I would have made, if it was a normal season and we're just kind of playing through obviously with one of the transfers. But yeah, I think because of the situation, I prefer Perisic.
Yeah, Sun H has put Perisic minutes concerned though. Well, that's always the thing with Perisic, is we can never be sure. And even on review here, you can see that he's actually got 59 minutes next to his name. So that's what they expect, which is a lot less than everyone else. So if you do think that Perisic plays 70 minutes, he jumps ahead of most of these guys, to be honest, apart from the very top guys. And I think if you could, it will be built into review because the guy's a genius, a certain percent chance of him being in the front three as well. But less, if we get the leak from Paul O'Keefe that he's going to start and he's in the front three or the front two, that will jump up again, I would have thought, quite a lot. And he is on all set pieces anyway, so he's always got that in his, I don't know if he's on most of the set pieces, so he's got that in his locker. So he is a very enticing pick for 1 week. And the real appeal is what you said, you don't have to carry him through, right? Because he is a bit of a headache after that.
Yeah, sure.
Right, let's move on to midfielders and forwards because I think this is where most people want to spend their transfers. And again, I appreciate, guys, nearly everyone's going to be waiting for the leak, so it's hard to commit. I have made someone amongst you will probably spot the alteration I've made to expected minutes to one of the players in this list. So if you go to midfielders, we've got Salah right at the top on 8.4, basically the best midfielder this week and actually the best pick in terms of the expected points, even above Haaland, who's on 76 minutes. And then we've got De Bruyne, we've got Foden in third, and that's the guy who I've changed his minutes for. He is actually, I think, about 11th or 12th at the default minutes of when I recorded this. I bumped it up to 82 just to suggest if you think he's going to play and maybe he comes off a little bit. Maybe that's a little bit optimistic, even 82, probably a little bit lower, maybe 75, something like that would probably be more accurate. But I wanted to put it in here because he does suddenly jump to the third best midfielder. And having taken him out last week personally for Trossard, if we get the news he starts this week, I think he probably does. I think I've talked a little bit about it on Twitter. He was obviously benched in the Cup. I think the fact that Brentford are almost certain to play a back five, the fact that Pep has mentioned numerous times that when there's a lot of defenders in a tight block, it's a lot better to try and go on the outside of them than it is to cut inside, which is what Jack Grealish does into traffic. My biggest worry is Jack Grealish was fantastic again in the Cup, and he's been a bit of an issue for Foden because he's been playing so well, and Pep seems very reluctant to use him on the right side, really reluctant to do so. Obviously in previous seasons he was playing as the 9 if he couldn't get into the team on the left. We now have Alvarez and Haaland, so it's another place that's been taken away from him. So yeah, there's still a chance that he doesn't play, but I think it makes tactical sense to play him. He's also makes minutes sense to play him this week as well, which he hasn't had going into this game. So yeah, I'm fairly confident he actually plays. So if he starts, he suddenly jumps right to the top and I don't have him in my team. The fact that Mitrovic is out has kind of forced my hand, which is really annoying already, because if I know that if suddenly we get the leak that Foden's in the team, I'll really want to have him, because it just feels like one of those FPL moments, doesn't it, where those of us that are committed to Foden and got him in and have seen a series of one-pointers eventually got rid of him, and then he goes and starts home to Brentford, you just know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. I mean, you've got 3 City, have you? You've got Cancelo, Alvarez, or have you got 2?
No, I've got 3. I've got Alvarez, Haaland, and Cancelo. So yeah, that kind of moves off the table for me. But yeah, I mean, if he does start, I mean, if I had enough, if I had 2 City and I had enough to put Foden in for, say, even Rashford who I bought him last week, and I found out he started, he'd be in my team. But Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably if he starts, I mean, I think he becomes the best kind of midfield option after Salah and De Bruyne, as the review suggests. But yeah, I've got other fires to put out. I've got to wait on Alvarez and that kind of that. I think I mean him starting is extremely unlikely, but it's still something I'm going to kind of wait on, and then kind of make my transfer basically depends on that.
Yeah, this is it. But I think if you're sat there and you get the news Foden starts and you've got, like, for me, I think if I was to read all 10 of these, I think nearly everyone's midfield is made up of probably part of these 10 players. I don't know if yours are. I know probably throwing Pereira as your fifth, but you've probably got Saka, Zaha, Martinelli, Trossard, Rashford, Bowen. One of those guys, two of those guys, three of those guys alongside a De Bruyne or a Salah. It's pretty much everyone's midfield, I think. I don't think there's too many names I can think of that players might have that aren't actually on that list. If they are, they're probably just a little bit more punty. Like, there are other options, don't get me wrong, but I think those are probably the best picks. And I mean, review says they are, and who am I to argue? So I think in the situation where everything else was perfect, I still would be tempted to move one of those guys on to Foden, just given the nature of the fixture.
Well, would you do it for a hit though?
I wouldn't do it for a hit, no.
Yeah. So I mean, because for me it'd be for a hit, and I think a lot of people will be in that situation. So I think if I had 2 free transfers, definitely. I mean, Alvarez, I can move him down and then move one of the other midfielders up. So it's definitely, I think, something that those who have 2 free transfers should look at. If they're going to be waiting for the early team news. But yeah, for a hit, I don't think it's worth it.
No, I really like Trossard this week as well. I think Trossard's, his numbers they must be extremely good for him to feature so highly here, because in the past, Trossard has been a decent FPL pick. He's been a poor FPL pick, he's been a decent FPL pick, he's always been bubbling under the surface, but he just looks really impressive to me every week. The fact he's playing up front, the fact that De Zerbi is just incredibly attacking. He's really high up there, so I'm really hopeful that he is going to get some decent returns. Compared to some of the other midfielders on this list, Trossard doesn't really take the set piece. He obviously hasn't got the penalties, so you really need to rely on it from open play. And I'm not always a fan of that. That's why I've usually got the players that do have those other factors in my team. But with him, I don't know, something about him. I think that even after the World Cup, and there's a lot of good options, I think, from 17 when I was looking, Trossard still, his name still has to be in the hat, I think, from that point, because the fixtures are decent again. I do like him a lot.
Yeah, no, I think he's been a great pick this season, and he seems to be getting the turns from, like, he seems to be playing in a lot of different positions and getting the turns wherever he plays, which is good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Zaha, I don't own this week. I'm pretty scared. Do you own Zaha? You do.
I do, yeah. I was one of the lucky ones who kept him. I mean, before the leaks, the moves I was looking at and the moves that the review also suggested to me were, Zaha to Trossard, or Mitrovic to Wilson. So yeah, I mean, I think if he didn't get any leaks, I think he would have possibly would have been one of my transfer outs this week. But yeah, luckily I kept him, and he turned in a good fixture against West Ham, and no doubt he's going to blank against against Nottingham Forest in one of the easiest fixtures of the season.
Yeah, his Elite 1K ownership is really high, Zaha. He's one of the players I definitely fear this week not having. Obviously so high up there. If you take Foden out, let's say he doesn't start or he doesn't get those amount of minutes, the 4th highest potential midfielder. It's quite a scary prospect not to go with him when so many of the good managers do have him. So I need to get lucky on that one, I think.
Yeah, I've the one I'm missing there is Saka.
Okay. Yeah, I think Saka owners, I've had Saka. I've been pretty hard done by the last few weeks. And I know he looks great every week, set pieces, penalties. But the game against Forest where he went off injured. I think we got done out of one there, to be honest with you. There's no saying for sure that if he was on the pitch, he'd have done what was it, Reece Nelson that came on? He almost certainly wouldn't have done exactly that. But I think you'd probably put him down for another return at least as a minimum, maybe
100%. I mean, I was watching that game because that was a week where I was trying to do a Foden to Saka and it didn't go through. And then I seen him. Obviously, I was watching the game and he got that assist for Martinelli's goal. And I was like, this game is going to be 4 or 5-0, and this is going to be an absolute nightmare. So yeah, I was quite relieved to see him kind of get a wee niggle and then go off injured. So I got lucky with that one again.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. Yeah.
It goes both ways. Not always in one season. Not always in one season, though, right? To balance
Yeah.
out, you can have a whole season of just dreadful luck. Trust me, I've been there, and the other way, I've had loads of jam as well. Um, let's move on to forwards because I suppose that's probably where people will most likely be spending their transfers. I think because we got the Mitrovic news, which I think is very well owned. Maybe people didn't sort out Tony from last week, and he's now playing City. Maybe people went for Skamaka, and although I wouldn't be looking to remove him, maybe there's a bit of concern around there. You've obviously got the fact that Haaland might not even play. You've got the fact that you might have Alvarez set in your team, and again he might not start. It's probably where the majority of transfers will be spent, I guess. So Review has got Haaland down as a default 76 minutes at the moment, and it's got him top average points of 8 for obvious reasons. Quite a big drop off to Kane, 1.1. That's quite a significant drop off for Review.
It's huge.
Yeah. Obviously got the really high minutes there. He did play in the midweek for League Cup, but he did come off early, didn't he? So I can't see any scenario where he doesn't play, to be honest, unless I think Kane. This whole people have been speculating a lot on Twitter that because of the World Cup, players may ask for a rest just to make sure they don't get injured, and maybe that might happen for some players, or do you just not buy into it? I wouldn't see Kane as one of those guys anyway. But
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I buy into that, but I think even if it was true, I think Harry Kane would be the last one to ask. I think he's one of the most selfish players ever, and he's after that, Alan Shearer's all-time goal record. I think he's going to play regardless.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. To be honest, on that note, I think one of the players, just while we're touching on it, that maybe you could argue for would be De Bruyne. I don't think that he will do it, but I think out of everyone in that squad for Man City, who probably carries the most clout, the guy he's worked with for the longest time, given his age profile, given how much it's probably his last World Cup, well, maybe given he's 30. The fact that he could not play him and they could smash Brentford. Do you think there's anything in someone like that? Maybe not specifically him, but someone like that just saying, I'll have the week off? Because Twitter's full of these theories, and I never know how much credence to give them, but maybe. I mean, that's a situation where I could maybe buy it.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's... I don't think we could put... Personally, I wouldn't put much weight on that. I think maybe just as in a normal game, like if City are winning 4-0, KDB would probably be one of the first ones to come off where he, previously wouldn't. If we didn't have this kind of, World Cup, next game week. So I don't think it'll make much difference. I just think it'll be like, it'll be like in-time game scenarios.
Yeah.
And then that's not something that we could predict. And I don't think it's wise to try and predict that either.
No.
So I just think we should just go in with the kind of same premise that we usually do.
Yeah.
And just kind of, hope for the best, really.
Okay. So put very, very minimal event, if nothing, on those sort of things, really, when you're making your decisions, is probably the best.
Yeah.
I do agree. I think if Man City are sort of 3-4-0 up and it's the 60th minute, then there's not... I mean, forget the World Cup. In that scenario, De Bruyne is always liable to come off anyway, because Pep has singled him out for that. But with the World Cup, maybe an added impetus. But of course, he could have been involved in all the goals if they've scored 3 or 4 anyway. You're certainly not going to be taking him out unless we get a leak that he's not starting, right? So
yeah,
it's almost irrelevant, I guess. Darwin and Jesus are the next two after Haaland and Kane. Sat at 5.7 for Darwin, 4.9 for Jesus. So again, quite a significant drop off. I'm fuming because I can't get to Darwin, not unless I take a hit. And to be honest, he is the player outside Zaha, who is owned by the top 1K a lot. Darwin is probably the player I fear the most after that. I don't know if you agree, because I think he's...
Yeah, totally. I mean, if I had enough money for a straight swap, from Alvarez to Darwin, that'd be my top transfer in. But I've only got 8.1, so I've got enough for Firmino.
Same, yeah.
So, yeah, I see Firmino's down there as well at 60 minutes and 3.9. I mean, I have considered Firmino, to be honest, because he is one of those players, again, for not looking at the stats, just looking at, that vibe pick, he can get a huge haul in any random game. I think he got a 22-pointer against Bournemouth, was it not? So he has one I've been looking at. So, yeah, unfortunately, I can't afford Darwin, so if I was to go there, it would have to be Firmino. But I would, I think if you can afford Darwin, especially for like an Alvarez or a Mitrovic, I'd put him as your top transfer in.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm really worried about that scenario, to be honest, because I'd love to have him. I'm with you, actually. I've got exactly 8.1 to replace Mitrovic, presuming the news is accurate and he's definitely out, which basically means for me the guy just below Jesus or Firmino are probably my top 2 picks.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised. I looked at Firmino on FBref just across the season, so expected goal involvement, and he sat in 12th place overall, which is pretty damn high.
Mm.
You know, it's quite significant. You know, Jesus is higher. So Jesus is on 0.81 per 90 expected goal involvement, and Firmino's in 12th at 0.61. So I think it's just, we are a bit tainted, I think, with Firmino because we kind of know what he's like. Does that make sense? Over many years, and therefore
Yeah.
we kind of rule him out. But it is a very good fixture, and he's playing up front for Liverpool at the end of the day, and his data's decent. So you know, maybe I'm just being silly to sort of discount him.
No, I don't think. I think he's definitely in consideration. What I didn't kind of consider before looking at this was his minutes. They seem quite low to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't know. Maybe obviously I know the review knows better, but I would like to know the reasons for that. But I think looking at that, I think if we can't afford Darwin, then Jesus is the next best option if you're kind of looking at it from a purely stats point of view. But yeah, that just Wales away just doesn't kind of scream big haul to me. Whereas Southampton at home kind of does. But yeah, I really would like to know why his minutes are so low.
I suppose that they do make quite a lot of offensive subs, don't they? But I would say Darwin gets subbed off as well as Firmino, so I don't know it's guaranteed to be him. He has played a lot more minutes. I think in a lot of recent seasons, Firmino has been either not playing or he's come off of the bench or he's been early subbed. He's never really been like a 90-minute guy, so maybe that factors in because it uses a sort of
Yeah,
historical data quite a lot. And they do make offensive subs, don't they? They usually bring on either Carvalho or Jones or whoever. They bring on the kids usually. Yeah, so maybe that factors in. For me, the slight worry I have about going Jesus, because I've seen a lot of content this week about Jesus just hasn't been scoring goals. I personally don't give a shit about that at all. I think his data's fantastic. I think he's a fantastic player. Yeah, he might be a below average finisher on average across the many seasons. But I'm not worried in the slightest. I think if opportunities will come his way, and that's far more important. And I really like him as a pick. So I'm not worried about that part. The part for me that I worry about is the triple up, and I don't know whether that's me also being silly because I've got Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus, and that is a lot of eggs in one basket. You know, to have three players I've done it so many times in the past where I've had three Man City players in a home fixture for a great one, and they've just been terrible. It's just been awful. But to have three in an away fixture versus Wolves, history tells me that that's probably not a decent idea. I know it's a very decent Wolves, a very different Wolves team these days, but.
Yeah.
It's still in the back of my mind that having a triple up on tack, if they just don't score a goal or it's 1-0, that's three quite expensive or decent picks, I should say, because they're not that expensive.
Yeah.
That are suddenly getting.
No, I think that's a very valid concern, Luke, and I think if you look at the odds as well, right, the odds really kind of favour Arsenal in that game, and Wales are one of the, I think the second most likely not to keep a clean sheet this week as well. And then on top of that, this Arsenal team has been different gravy this season. But Wolves away is always going to be it has always kind of historically been a tough fixture. So there is always that chance where they can decide to play that day, and we can restrict it to a 1-1 or a 1-0. So it is definitely a valid concern. But yeah, I think if you've probably, I think on that basis because you've got kind of Martinelli and Saka, you can probably use that excuse to go for Firmino. And even though I think Arsenal will win that game, I can't see it being a 3 or 4-0. Maybe a 2-0 or a 2-1. A quite convincing victory. Whereas with the Southampton game, I can see that game being a 3 or 4-0 quite easily.
Yeah, the thing is, it would put me on a triple up the other way. I'd have, even though it's a defender, I'd have Trent, Salah and Firmino, and then suddenly I'm in a similar situation. But I do prefer the fixture, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, you'd rather. Even with this Liverpool team, I think you'd still rather the triple up and given the fixture.
Yeah, one for me to ponder. The other one to throw out there is if Alvarez does start, and there has been some noise. I talk about it as well that when Brentford are very likely to use a back five, if Pep thinks they will sit in extremely deep, 2 DMs, 5 defenders, then he doesn't really like to use De Bruyne. He prefers to use the 2 strikers. De Bruyne's more the transition man, the man who can break. He needs space, as Pep always talks about, to operate in, and he's not as useful in a game like that. And he prefers to have 2 bodies to cause them issues in the striker's box. Now, I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think Brentford are poor enough of a side, because the evidence we've got so far are that Copenhagen and Forest, he's done it. I think there may have been one other game that slipped my mind, but possibly not. But definitely those two. And I wouldn't say Brentford are as bad as either of those two sides, personally. I know they've been playing very badly recently, but first of all, it relies on Haaland being fit enough so that he could even do the two up front. So that's a factor. Yeah. The fact that De Bruyne was rested last game, I don't know. It's probably not going to happen. But if Alvarez is in the starting lineup, he's another forward that I think I'd probably go to. I think I'd rather just get him in rather than go for the triple up on Firmino and Jesus. Would you do that if Alvarez was in the starting lineup?
I would, yeah. If I didn't have Alvarez and he was in the starting lineup, I think he would. I think it'd be very close between him and Darwin as my top two picks if I knew them starting. But yeah, I mean, what percentage chance would you put on Alvarez starting?
What percentage chance would I put on it? I don't know, probably like 10-15%, to be honest. I don't think it's definitely more. I mean, in a normal game where Haaland's fit and it's just a normal match that they would have, I'd put it somewhere between 0 and 5. But considering the fact that the tactics suit it and Haaland's not, maybe 15 to 20, maybe actually, maybe a little bit pessimistic there, but. I don't know. He can still come on. At the end of the day, he's playing very well, and he doesn't have to play up front. He can play off of the right wing, as we know. He has played off the left wing before as well. Can play number 10. Can play a striker. He's just an all-round really good player. He's really two-footed as well, to be honest. And Pep could easily just bring him on, couldn't he? Like we've already just talked about it. The fact that there's a World Cup round the corner, they're 3-4-0 up, and De Bruyne wants to come off. Well, the obvious replacement for De Bruyne really is Alvarez. You can't use him in a similar role. De Bruyne's almost used as a second striker, just off of him. So it's a similar situation. Martial's an interesting one on there. We've got a question about him later, so I won't spoil it. But he does. I think he's starting tonight, isn't he? So I'm not sure how that affects it. But he's another one I think that you could look at as a Hail Mary, because presumably he'll be on penalties if Ronaldo's not on the pitch.
Yes.
Yeah, and playing against Fulham, you just don't trust him, do you?
I'm just checking the score. It's half time almost, and he's still on the pitch. Yeah, I think he's. I mean, a great pick, obviously, but it's just the minutes, isn't it? I mean, he's just back from injury. Is he going to start again at the weekend after starting today? Depends how many minutes he gets today as well. It's a tough one. I think there's too many other good options there for us to take a punt on him. Even like the likes of Firmino and Darwin are like kind of loan picks, which we're much more sure that they'll start than him. So, yeah, I mean, again, we're talking earlier, it's a 1 week punt, so I wouldn't put anybody off. I just think it would be really wary of his minutes.
It's hard to put yourself in. Let's say you're 5 million in the world right now, and like you, I think Darwin is a better pick. You can afford Darwin. Would you just do Darwin because you expect him to get more points, or would you do Martial because you think, well, I'm 5 million, who cares? I know we've got a long way left of the season yet, so.
I still think I'd do Darwin. I think we're way too early in the season just to be kind of like, going for Hail Mary punts on that basis. So, yeah, I still think I'd go Darwin.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Just sort of put that out there for anyone else considering the same, who might not be doing that well. I think that's covered probably most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. We've got a few questions that we can run through. And guys in the chat, if you've got any questions for me or Abdul, then stick them in and I shall try to answer. I'm going to roll through some of the questions we got off of Twitter. I'm not going to bring them up on the screen because I'm not that organised. I've got one from at FPL Positivity, and I've kind of grouped it with another guy at Capital FPL. So Positivity was quite specific. So will Richarlison or Martial get enough minutes, which is what we discussed in game week 16, to be worth a 1 week punt? So he's asking between those two. I'm not. They're both just back from injury, right? I think it's a dangerous game to go either.
Yeah, I think it's as I just kind of mentioned as well. I think there's a lot of other kind of 1 week punts there who are quite low that we can go for. But to answer the question, out of both of them, I'd probably still go Martial if I was to pick out one of them.
I agree. And Capital's one was just the best forward under 8 million. That's why I listed them. If we get the news, like if you're sat with Alvarez in your team, you've already got Solanke. So I'm painting a situation here. So it's probably the best cheap forward that you can get. So I'll probably answer that, I think. And Alvarez isn't starting, you can only afford another cheap forward. Who would you look to? Because there isn't a massive market. At that point, would you just go Martial because he is really cheap?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, possibly Solanke maybe. But yeah, I think I'd probably just. I mean, if you're kind of looking at that kind of price point, you probably just go for him. I mean, I think he'll definitely get minutes off the bench. So. Yeah, I mean it's a tough one, but in that price point, you're probably not really got many more options.
Mm. How much is Jesus, by the way? Is he bang on 8 million? Because if he is, then I'll say him.
Yeah, he does his 8 million. Yeah,
He says under 8. Does that count? Probably not. Um, I think
yeah. I
Jesus.
mean, obviously, if you can get Jesus for 8, then yeah, then he's the one.
That's it.
Um,
I agree. At FPL underscore Zaha, is it worth a transfer to take KDB out and bring in Haaland? The only way you could do it is with a hit. This is the exact situation I didn't want to be in and why I didn't do it last week.
yeah,
And although it's paid off massively for you, like, well, it depends what you've done, but I would have thought it's paid off because De Bruyne and Alvarez both got decent points. It's tricky, isn't it? Because it's just such a hard question, because the bottom line is I would really want Haaland in my team. Like, that's no question. Like,
yeah.
I would really want him, and he is scary. Like, if he's going to start, and yes, he'd be my captain as well. But to transfer out De Bruyne for a hit for 1 week to then bring him back in, there's many different scenarios where that can just bite you in the face, isn't it? Where De Bruyne goes mad, and I mean Haaland might only get 60, 70 minutes or even 30. Let's presume he starts, because that's the best case scenario. KDB could still outscore him, right? So I personally wouldn't, but would you be so scared that you just do it because that way you've got Haaland?
That's a tough one. I don't think I would. I don't think I would do that. I mean, oh God. I mean, I guess you'd be hoping for early team news, that on KDB's bench to make the decision for you. But yeah, I mean, if both start, then I don't. I think there's too many other kind of moves there that you could make. That would benefit your team. You could, KDB's not a bad captain shout at all. If Haaland scores, it's a high chance, he gets the assist. And then, it kind of depends on who you've got in that Haaland spot as well. So, KDB, and if you can get Darwin in instead of Haaland, I don't think that's too bad. KDB captain and Darwin.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd take that.
I wouldn't take the hit.
I think the correct answer is, like, if you're looking at it, from that sense, where it's like, if you're looking at it, the chance of it paying off, I think the correct answer is it's not worth it.
I agree. I would have said the same last week, though, as well, when it did pay off. But it's important to remember that just because the result did pay off doesn't mean you're invincible when you do it again, and it does happen, and it's going to happen again. Like, there's no two ways about it. Haaland is, arguably the best pick this week by quite a considerable margin, and his effective ownership is going to be ridiculous, and I wouldn't want to be in that position, yes, but I still can't see a situation where I would take out De Bruyne for -4 in order to get him.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. And sorry if he does go mad.
Big help.
Yeah. At FPL Prem Tipster, sorry. One thing you could change about FPL. That was an interesting question. I think we've probably had many over the years if you play in this game. But what's the one thing you could change?
I think right now it'd be change the deadline to kick off.
You're going with a meta discussion, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, change the deadline to kick off, kill off all these team leaks. I personally think that would kind of level the playing field as well. People say, like, it disadvantages people in different time zones, but those people in different time zones are still kind of, the ones who are dedicated are still kind of, setting alarms and, checking team news for the early leaks. So now all they need to do is just set the alarm, for the kickoff, and not the kickoff, sorry, an hour before, and then get the official team news, make your transfers, go back to sleep. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's official news as well just makes it more sensible as well, because at the moment people are having to set in their alarms and get up on a whim that they're going to get some team news that isn't utter bullshit as well, and it can ruin the whole experience. I just hate it. There's no answer to this, I think, and it's been discussed to death on everything that I've looked at, but I'm with you. I mean, we both play Sky, right, and they do it and it works fine. I understand it's a different game and it's mainly UK and all of that, but I think the bigger discussion from it would be, well, what's the knock-on effect? The knock-on effect is it would make sense for you to wait to do your transfer right until the first kickoff every single time, and then the whole discussion of transfers and the price changes and stuff, you'd probably be playing a slightly different game. They'd probably have to tweak the algorithms and stuff if they wanted to keep that feature, because there might not be enough net transfers for the week to actually have an impact. Do you see what I mean? There are knock-on effects to doing that. It isn't as simple as just that, but I'm with you. I still think it's probably the ideal solution.
I think they've got enough, money and infrastructure behind them to make those changes.
Oh, I don't doubt that. It's just whether they want to do it.
Whether they want to do it, yeah. I don't think so.
I mean, they moved them before, right, to try and kill it because they had people who were. I mean, the reason they addressed it there, though, is because it was official news. People were obviously accessing the Premier League portal where the official lineups
Yeah.
are lined up, which people still do now. It just doesn't benefit people because the deadline's been moved. So
Mhm.
they did it. They did it then, but that was, I guess, official news. Whereas now we are. I mean, ultimately, like someone like Team and Chips, he's getting a tip from someone, presumably, who's told someone who knows someone who scrubs boots at Man City's training ground or whatever.
Mhm.
You don't know for a sure. We don't know for 100% fact that it's definitely true, and there will be a time, I assume, that in the future where someone gets it wrong or someone changes.
Yeah,
People will be livid.
definitely.
Right, let's move on. Oh no, what should I do? I'll add one then because you've done that one. What shall I do? Mine's really boring. I would just remove chips. I know people like them and they do create a bit of excitement,
Yeah,
but I preferred the game when there was one wild card for the whole season, and you had to plan a lot more. I think in today's game it's a lot tougher because we have so much bigger and quality squads where people miss out. You've got trains failing, all
yeah,
sorts of stuff. COVID, like, it doesn't feel great, and people would probably, as a worldwide game, it's probably not good for them. But I don't really care about that. I'm on about for me. For me personally, I would like it to be more simplistic, and they take away that, and therefore reward people who
yes.
plan for a longer period of time, and we just suck up the shit that happens. Nowadays, they're just throwing out like free hits like confetti if something goes wrong, and I don't really like that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't mind that either. I think maybe having like the two wild cards though, but no chips would probably be. Yeah, I think it'd be better for us kind of us purists, you could say, and I think it'd be kind of benefit us in terms of getting better ranks as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would give up. I think if they can't
Yeah,
change stuff and they
sure,
look at their team, there probably more people would give up. So that every little helps. um,
exactly.
at Lucid
Especially
Dream,
with 10 million players.
that's it. Yeah. At Lucid Dream says the best punt between Rashford and Ben Rama. It's literally giving you those two players to pick this week. Which one would you choose?
I think for me, like I'd go for Rashford just simply because Fulham's defence is terrible. I mean, they're the worst for XGC in the league actually, and they conceded the fourth most goals. They conceded 24 goals. So for me, I think his minutes are more secure. But Ben Rama's a great shout as well. And I know Fabio bought him in last game week, which was astounding because I just knew when Fabio bought him in. And I seen everybody on Twitter, and I just knew he was going to score, and he did. So yeah, he's probably going to get a hat trick because Fabio's got him.
Yeah, and he's probably going to take the penalty if he gets one as well. So he is.
Yeah, that's a good point. He is on penalties, isn't he? So yeah,
Yeah.
that must have been one of the reasons why you got him in.
Oh, almost certainly it will be. The thing, I don't know if you saw the news, but he played with heavy strapping. He wasn't even at 100% for that game. So yet again, as Fabio, great, but also got the luck because Moyes literally said afterwards he
That's
was
it.
heavily strapped up, and that's why I had to take him off or something along those lines. So
Yeah,
he could have just got like I do a move like that, and the guy doesn't turn up because he's
yeah. So
broken his ankle while fucking brushing his teeth or whatever. Um,
mhm.
right, at Sam Martin FPL, thoughts on paying for a blue tick? I thought I'd put this your way because you've already got a blue tick, haven't you? Look at me,
Yeah, I
oh,
mean,
I'm
I
so
don't know. I
important.
mean,
Carry
yeah. Say that again. Sorry.
on. I was just taking it. Oh, look at me, I'm so important. I've got a blue tick. No, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite annoying because like I just got mine like kind of like a few weeks ago,
Yeah, you've been
and
done
Elon
over.
Musk comes in and just makes them totally worthless. But I mean, I guess we've got to see what he's actually going to offer for the payment. I've been told there's going to be less ads. You can monetize. You'd be higher up on like search engines and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I guess if it's worth it, then yeah. I mean, I think as FPL content creators, and like yourself as well, it probably be. I think we're kind of being forced into buying it in a way because I think a lot of majority of the content creators will buy the tech because they would feel that it would kind of affect them, and then the ones who don't will kind of get left behind. So yeah, it's a bit of a shitty situation, but yeah, I'm just going to see how it goes. What about you? Are you thinking of doing it as well?
I don't know. Similar to you, I don't. It feels like you're being almost forced into doing it, which I don't
Yeah.
want to do. I mean, also it's the whole thing of now I don't want to get one to try and think that because people will think you're important and you want to buy it and look
Mm.
cool, and it's like, well, that's not what it's about for me. I couldn't give a rat's ass about that. I think the most appealing thing is the fact that it gives you 50% of adverts. Now, if it was 100% of adverts taken out, I'd probably do it. I'll have to see how it goes, whether people say it's worth it. It's certainly nothing I'm going to jump into. I'll wait and see. But that would be the main reason, is just the fact that, I'm a grown man who spends a hell of a lot of time on Twitter. So when it's kind of like your hobby, or like anything, like FPL, like gaming, I don't mind spending money on something I'm very happy to spend time on. If you're going to have a hobby or do something, then do it well, in my opinion, or do it, put some money, put some investment into it. And Twitter is part of that. So I wouldn't mind that necessarily. It's not like I'm smoking. People always come, I'm not drinking every night and smoking fags so I can justify it to myself or whatever. So I don't mind it. It's just that for me, it's the whole thing of, well, what am I actually getting for the money at the moment? It doesn't look like very much, so I'm going to have to wait and see what people say. But ultimately, if my interactions on Twitter just become diabolical and no one ever sees anything you do or type, then
I think that's the fear, isn't it? I think that's the fear.
Yeah, we'll see, because at the moment, it's very early days, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not too bothered either way. I'm not going to join this whole crowd of people who have got a blue tick start taking the piss out of them for getting a blue tick. If people want to do it and pay the money, that's up to them.
It's totally up to them. I think it's not as bad as buying stuff like V-Bucks on Fortnite and things like that. So
yeah,
the people complaining about it are probably doing that.
Or £10 million on FIFA in the same month.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just.
Mental.
Yeah, it's like I think it's one of those things going to be forgotten about in the next few weeks, but we'll see how it goes. But I'm like you. I don't know what's going to happen with my tick. I think apparently they're going to remove it, and within 90 days or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to just wait out as well and see what happens.
You've been proper done over there, haven't you? Literally the only
I wouldn't minded if I had it for like a year or something, right? And I kind of got bored of it, but I just literally got it and then this happens. But it's no big deal, but it's pretty funny.
You know what's going to happen, actually, thinking about it, I think it's already happening in the Twitter world, is people can impersonate you. That's the thing I also worry about.
Yeah.
So even with the tick, so the tick's almost regardless in that situation. They can now buy a tick. I don't know why they'd want to do it as me, because I'm no one, but they could pretend to be me, interact with people, and then I might not even see it. It might just be a conversation that's happened in some little subsection of Twitter I've not even looked at. And someone thinks that I'm an arsehole because of what they've done or I don't like that. I might be an arsehole, but it wasn't me. I can't. Do you know what I mean? That might leave that impression on people. They could be doing it all over the place. You just don't know, do you? And that's the thing now. When I see someone or speak to them, I think I recognise certain handles and obviously the pictures, and there's people I interact with all the time. I could easily get duped because I ain't got the time to check out every single person every time I look at them, whether it's a legit person. They're going to have to do something about it.
Yeah, I think they will. I think eventually that's going to start happening. And then, they're going to have to do something about it. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Someone's just put in the chat there, Booner's hobby just got expensive. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Booner's almost does it every week anyway. And now suddenly he's got look,
if Booner gets a blue tick, he is going to cause absolute havoc. He is just going to, because obviously it's just going to dupe 10 times more people.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I think you could also, I imagine, build up followers very, very quickly if you just get, let's say you do one banger tweet and you've got a blue tick, right? Whatever you've decided to impersonate, and then people start following you off the back of that, and then because you've now got followers and you've got a blue tick, people assume you are the real one, and therefore they'll keep adding in, and suddenly it exponentially grows. I don't know, I'm getting carried away, but it doesn't seem like
it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem particularly good. Last question. This is from @Clara_FPL. She says, "What makes you squirm?" Now, I don't know whether that means in an FPL sense or in a reality sense, but hit me.
What makes you squirm? I don't know. You go first on this one.
I don't even have an answer. I was waiting for you to talk so I could say. I'll go with FPL then. For what makes me squirm is when a player's scored some points or done something, and then someone tweets that person and then puts the eye emoji, and it's just for something that's just happened. It does my head in every single time. It's like someone will score a brace and then they've got Fulham next and they put eyes next to them and it's just a shit player that no one's ever going to buy. It's just what are you doing? That annoys me.
Yeah, I guess mine is quite similar when people kind of tweet about a certain player which everyone already knows about, and they'll tweet it out as if it's breaking news. This player's got these two fixtures next, which are easy, but everyone and their nan's already got them. That is a kind of pet peeve of mine as well.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think though to go against that, there's people out there, because FPL is quite a template and quite boring and quite obvious. They tried to come up with all these crazy picks and stuff, and they put it out there, and you're just like, oh bless them. They put a lot of work into that, but no one's ever buying that person.
Yeah, and another one is where like you'll get certain people who recommend like every player under the book, and then the one player that bangs, they'll kind of quote tweet
absolutely.
That's just that makes me proper squirm.
Yeah, that's Twitter's full of that. Throw enough shit around, eventually one of them hits, and we're all guilty of that, right? Everyone highlights their wins and not so much their losses. Yeah, okay, I think that's just about it from the questions I've got. I'm just going to dive into the chat real quick. I've got Simon Lilly here. Great show, as usual. 2 free transfers, Mitra and Foden to Darwin and Rashford seems a no-brainer. I'm 0.1 million off Mitra to Darwin with 1 transfer. Yeah, that's the exact same situation that me and Abdul are in, with 0.1 off the Mitra to Darwin, I think. Or not 0.1, just can't afford him. Yeah, that one's very much dependent, isn't it? Because if Foden is starting, I wouldn't be looking to take Foden out.
Yeah, sorry, who was it asked that question?
Simon Lilly, it's in the chat. So 2 free transfers, Mitra and Foden to Darwin and Rashford. He can do it for a hit. Oh no, it's not 2 free transfers yet, so it wouldn't be a hit. He can't just do Mitra to Darwin because he's 0.1 off.
But I don't know if that. I mean, so even if Foden starts, right, you've got. Well, I guess who you could, like, it depends who you can get for Mitrovic in 1 free transfer, and you know what? Yeah, I don't think that'll be worth it, because I mean I think you can definitely get a good replacement for Mitrovic and keep Foden in, and then you can use the other free transfer for another transfer elsewhere. But if you look at them side by side, Mitro and Foden, Darwin, Rashford, I think obviously the latter kind of wins out by a landslide, because obviously Mitro's injured. But yeah, the fact that you can make that transfer elsewhere probably tells me probably not wise to do that one if Foden's starting, of course.
Yeah, it relies on the Foden start. That's all I can really say. Simon knows that already. I suppose just rely on whether get the news, and then hopefully the site stays up and you can do something about it. But the fact he's got 2 free transfers as well, like you'd be very inclined to. There's no reason to really burn one, is there? I know we can save the 2 free transfers. Have you seen this? If you don't make any transfers at all, you can actually come out of the back end with 2 free transfers. But I can't see a scenario where you wouldn't make a single transfer.
Yeah, that's I think that's madness. But I think that's just kind of due to their infrastructure, really. But yeah, I mean, if you're able to do that, then of course it's good luck to you. But I don't think anybody's going to be doing that.
No. Although I did look at my team, like what I put for game week 17 compared to my team now, and it isn't too dissimilar. It's more of the edge pieces that would change. A lot of the players would stay the same.
I think by the time we get to game week 17, and there's going to be, depending on how far certain teams have gotten injuries, I think we'll be making quite a few transfers.
I think the double game weeks are probably going to end up shaping it anyway, right? Because there's a lot of rumours that there'll be quite a few in the first few weeks, which will completely change everyone's team. Suddenly you might have to get a load of players that are obviously playing doubles, so change the team about. What's anyone else we've got in the chat here? I have Alvarez. Is it worth doing it to Darwin? I prefer Darwin to Alvarez, even if they start. Yeah, if it's for free and you've got no other fires. I think you agreed. You already said that as well, didn't you, sir?
Yep.
Zaha, any chance Mahrez will start next match? Of course, there's a chance. It's Pep Guardiola. He could play. I don't think he will, but he could do. And he obviously played well, got a goal and an assist. So there's every chance, but I personally don't think he will. The problem with Mahrez is always that he only plays one position in the team, and it is the most contested position in the entire lineup. The predictors group that I'm in, the right wing spot for Man City is anyone's guess any single week, and that's the only position Mahrez can play in. So he's never ever going to be recommended by anyone who follows Man City predictors anyway. So it's a tough one. Let's see, anything else I've got here? Who are you liking? Sorry, mate, you go on.
Yeah, just saw Adam's question there, saying Mitro for Firmino, Solanke or Martial for a 1 week punt. I think for me, because it's a 1 week punt, I'd go for Firmino. I think, even though I think Solanke is probably the actual kind of safest and the one that's going to yield the most expected points. But I think I'd still go Firmino.
Yeah, I think for 1 week you go Firmino over Solanke personally. Yeah, I agree with that. I know Bournemouth have been scoring a lot of goals late, but if you said if one game gets 6 or 7 goals in it, I think home to Southampton suddenly springs up. Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. Who are you liking as a goalkeeper the other side of the World Cup? Have you even looked?
I haven't. I've not looked, and I won't be looking.
No.
I've not even started looking at the World Cup games yet. I just think it'll be, I'm gonna wait until game week 16 to look at the World Cup, and then I'll probably start looking at FPL about a week before.
Yeah, I briefly looked just to see if my team would be different, and I think there'll be probably 2 really popular ones. I think, and that'll just be Ward and Everson because they're so cheap.
Yeah.
And they allow everything else. The fixtures are okay, so I think that's absolutely fine. And I think the other obvious one is just Kepa. If Kepa's fit and he's playing, he's so cheap. And although Chelsea have been dreadful, you're getting a player comparatively to the other 4.4 or 4.5 goalkeepers or whatever he is. You're getting a team that is a lot better and presumably will improve when their players start coming back. So I think those will probably be the 2 popular ones.
Yeah, probably. I think Martial just scored by the
Did he really? Tony Kroos is out, someone just said, exclamation mark.
Oh, maybe.
What does he mean?
Has he been injured as well?
I don't know what he means by out. Does he mean out as in?
He's definitely just scored, so yeah, that'll increase his popularity a bit.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. Yeah, he's got this goal, 0.50 in the XG. Yeah, you can't deny when Martial is in the team, if he adds penalties to it, he's playing up front. In the central role, he's a decent pick for this fixture. There's no 2 ways about it. But the minutes are still in question.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
I think that's it. I think we're done, mate. Anything else you wanted to add at all before we pop off?
No, I think I've got pretty much everything. I think it's one of those game weeks where it's not a huge amount to talk about, kind of tactics wise. It's just about 1 week punts, isn't it? Really, and just kind of predicting the minutes.
That's it, and ultimately we're all going to be doing the same thing again, waiting for this leak that we presumably will get, and just acting off of it and hoping the servers stay up. So, kind of depressing in a way, but I'm kind of happy it's the last time this potentially happens, because I think after this, the first game week is not always going to be Man City or whoever it is, and hopefully there's a little bit of normality, and maybe FPL will get the chance to reset their servers while they've got their break and actually invest a little bit or do something which might help. But thanks guys for joining us in the chat. Thank you Abdul for joining me as well. It's been a pleasure. If you guys could do the usual stuff on YouTube, the likes, the comments, the sharing, all that stuff, that would really help us out, and I appreciate that. And we'll be back. We're not doing any World Cup stuff on here. We can't be bothered with that. So I'll see you on the other side. Bye from me.